Big Saturday of racing coming up at Churchill Downs. Gino Bacola here alongside my good friend Barry Spears, the sniper. Barry, I mean, some years they'd kind of give you in between the Derby and the Preakness and the Belmont, you'd get like a little bit of a week where it was kind of quiet. There wasn't as much going on. Heck, last week, Santa Anita had 4 days of racing, Memorial Day weekend. They had a bunch of stuff going on there. And then this weekend, Churchill Downs has an awesome Saturday for Stephen Foster Preview Day. I mean, from race 5 through race 11, it's all stakes races. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 graded stakes races that we're gonna run through here to preview.
Yeah, it's like Churchill had an idea to connect the Derby to this day and then to Stephen F. Foster Day. And it's working out pretty good because they got full fields in these races. There's a lot of stakes races and some good racing on hand.
If you are a contest player, Twin Spires has a lot of these contests for the Churchill Saturday. Over the next couple days, you can try to qualify. There's one in particular. I think there's a $200 feeder on Saturday that can get you into like a BC qualifier. And then they have a Churchill Downs challenge with cash prizes, but they have mainly a $600 SFBC qualifier. So you're trying to get qualified for that day that we're talking about next month, where right now for the Stephen Foster, they bumped the purse up to $2 million. And at the moment, as we sit here on Wednesday, May the 27th, it looks like it's going to be Sovereignty, White Abario, Skippy Longstocking, Magnitude, and Baeza right now. And then the other day, I was watching FanDuel TV. Christina was talking to Mike McCarthy. He didn't say that journalism was going to go to the race, but he said, wow, now that they've bumped it up to $2 million, we're kind of talking about it because, you know, anytime they've got a purse that big and we feel like we have a chance, we're going to talk about it. So right now there's a group of 5 that are pointing to that race, possibly even 6. And man, that just looks like a loaded race that is going to be a fun middle of the year point, right? I mean, we're all excited about Belmont week next week, but from an older horse, big race standpoint, that's going to be as good as we've seen.
Yeah, that's going to be a really good 5, maybe 6. You know, I'm really excited to see that race just because it's going to shape sort of the rest of the year, especially going into the Breeders' Cup and how the end of the year awards kind of shake out. And there's a lot at stake for all of the horses involved, honestly.
Okay, let's dive into this Churchill card for Saturday. We're going to start in race number 5 because that's where the stakes start. We'll run through a couple of them quickly, but we'll hit on each of the races from 5 through 11 using our Daily Racing Form past performances here. So, Barry, we start out with the Audubon. This is a race for 3-year-olds going 1 1/8 on the turf course. So, from a talking standpoint, horses that are going to take some money in here. You've got Zeppelin, who comes out of the Transylvania, and that was a tough race. You had horses coming out of that race go on and run in the Grade 1 American turf. You have Touch of Fire, who's not done a whole lot wrong in his 3 races. Thousand Sticks is interesting. He had really good form, and then he was off a couple months, and he went into that really tough American turf. And that race had a little more speed on paper than this one might have early on. So it could be a better spot from him. It's unlikely that Zinol is going to run because he just ran on May the 25th. So unless they wheel him back really quickly, in 5 days, you probably won't see him. He probably was just entered in this race in case something went wrong and he didn't run on Monday there, I think just a few days ago. So Barry, race number 5, you're going to see a lot of fields like this that are deep, that are competitive. Who's on your radar in here?
Yeah, this race is really interesting from a lot of standpoints. Mostly because of the fact there really doesn't seem to be a lot of speed in here. I thought that there really isn't too much to go to, and a horse like Thousand Sticks might have a bit of a pace advantage. At their 9-2 price, it seems pretty good to get on a horse who really didn't get a good run last time in the American turf. They were hung way outside. Horse actually didn't run all that poorly, even though they kind of faded this should be a much better spot, better post position. Getting Luis Saez also gives me the impression they're going to be forwardly placed. So I think Thousand Sticks might be pretty tough in this spot.
I started with him too, Barry, and for a lot of the reasons that you said. You're just kind of going through the field and like inside, outside. I don't think my favorite bird wants to be on the lead. He's more of a tracker, Baytown dreamer, hasn't just been in the best of form. He's not like fast. He has a couple of races where he's been close early on. Mr. Mo's Magic isn't. Tiernanog is going to be trying turf for the first time, is not quick early. From a long shot standpoint, I actually think Kravitz is kind of a fun underneath horse for some of the reasons we're talking about. He's actually shown a couple races where he could sit close. And in that last start, McCready actually just went gate to wire. So I don't know if he's good enough to win this race, but underneath standpoint, third and fourth spots, sure. Keep going through the field. There's not that many in here who want to be close up. And if you just put a line through that American turf last time out, he had a tough draw. He just didn't really look comfortable in that race. Everything else before that was very good. So I started there with Thousand Sticks. I do think the horses inside of him, like the 6 is solid. Zeppelin, I think he ran well last time. I didn't know what to do with the 7 quite as much. Touch of Fire. What do you think about this one who's going to take some money? Brad Cox and Irad Ortiz Jr.
I think this horse is going to be tough in this spot and probably I think will be favored. Every one of the races this horse has run has been pretty good, especially last time where they didn't get the best of trips and they still overcame that to win. But I think this horse can be forwardly placed, and I think that's where you're probably going to need to be in this race because there's really not much speed in here at all. Touch of Fire can do it. I just think Thousand Sticks might outquick them, but those two seem to be the ones to kind of gravitate to. Tiernanog is interesting to me.
First time on the grass.
Yes. Especially with Brendan Walsh and Tyler Gaffleone, they hook up at a pretty good percentage and a lot. There's really not much once you kind of get past those two or Touch of Fire and Thousand Sticks. I think this horse might be flying under the radar a little bit. That last race going really long was really good. Yeah. They kind of drop into a spot that's kind of winnable on their radar. You know what I mean? Because of the fact that they're trying turf for the first time doesn't mean that they're just completely out of it. I think the surface switch might actually do this horse some good.
Faced older last time out. Distance not an issue at all for this horse, going 1 mile and 1/8 because we just saw him win at 1 1/4 last time out. So yeah, I think I'm pretty much in agreement with you. We both feel like the 8,000 Sticks could be the fun play if he is like in the 4-1 ish range. I do respect Touch of Fire. I respect Zeppelin a little bit too. I thought that last race was probably just a little tough for him, and this is a better spot. And Barry mentions the 4 trying the grass for the first time as a fun long shot. I thought the 5 Kravitz could maybe sit a nice trip in here. You know, Barry, I think for most people, they'd be thinking Lenny. I got to say, I'm a big fan of Zoe myself. Zoe, great actress. Like to show. She did and she did a show on Hulu that was like really underrated. And I think it got canceled because I think it was around COVID times. It was a remake of High Fidelity, the movie with John Cusack, but it's like totally different. And she's the main character in the show. So if you haven't seen that one on Hulu, check it out. She's great. She even had a fun episode of the show The Studio last year where she didn't realize that she took a bunch of mushrooms. She like there was like a party of all these actors and actresses, and there was food and stuff out, and they're like, "Oh yeah, go ahead. It's an old school Hollywood party." And she eats a bunch of candy, and there was like mushrooms in the candy, and she was freaking out. And it's really funny. And that if you haven't seen that show, it's a great one. Check it out. And that's what's so fun about horse racing and the tangents we can get on, because you never know what the names are going to take you, right? With every race, you've got a different set of names, could be a whole different set of topics. We used to get into those a little more when we would do our stable duel live streams back in the day, right? We would have some fun.
I try to tell people all the time that horse racing is everywhere. I mean, you just have to, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it's everywhere you go.
It is. It's so great. So we'll turn the page from race number 5 to race number 6. This one is the grade 2 Shawnee, 1 1/16 on the main track. So the wild card in here is Splendora, because She's the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint winner. She put together this awesome stretch of 5 races in a row. And then she was in the Derby City Distaff last time out, and she didn't really fire. Now, I'll go kind of back and forth because going into the Derby City Distaff, you can see she actually missed a little bit of time. She got sick. Didn't miss a ton, but just missing a few weeks, she just wasn't as sharp as she normally was. You could see. So I can like give her an excuse for that. I can be forgiving, especially for a horse who had won like 5 in a row. Sometimes things are going to go wrong. You're not going to just win every single race. Right? She didn't really fire. So it wasn't even like she was disappointing. It was just like something was wrong. She's come back since. She's worked. I do like the fact that she hasn't had to leave Churchill, too. She's been at Churchill, staying there. Baffert's now going to have strings at Churchill and at Oaklawn next year. We heard that. The big issue is that she's just not been successful beyond a mile. So I think she can get this trip and she's classier than the rest of this group, but you're going to take a short price on her when she hasn't ever won beyond a mile and she's coming off a disappointing race. So that sometimes is a lot to swallow for a horse who's going to be a really short price.
Yeah, it certainly is. But I will say her best races have come at a mile.
Yep.
So I don't think going a little bit further is going to affect her much.
I thought
it might improve all year
they were going to do this, right? Because she was so good sprinting and up to a mile that it's like, yeah, you got to take a shot. It's concerning whenever a horse like her is coming off of a disappointing race like that. But I don't think distance will be an issue for her at all. I mean, when she was going a mile and 1/8, the only time we saw, she lost to Seismic Beauty and she finished second behind a horse who was really good. And she's actually making her return to the races this weekend. She's like 2-5 on Saturday at Santa Anita in a spot. So we don't think the distance is going to be an issue. Do you think that, are you worried at all about the last race? Do you think she's going to bounce back fine here? Where do you stand with her?
No, I'm not going to hold that last race against her. That was a really tough field. I mean, Usha came out of that and won this past weekend. We all know Ways and Means, that resume, and Our Disaster was just on point. I think those were just better sprinters than she is. I think the mile is probably her best distance. She could probably stretch out a little bit more than that to this distance, and I think that might be ideal. I can toss that last race because she doesn't really have too many like that. I mean, the ones that she ran that kind of buyer in previously, she was winning. And that tells me she probably just wasn't at her best going that trip. I'm interested to see her going long, but again, the question mark, as always, is always the price. I'm not sure I want to take 6-5 on a horse like this in a race like this, but there doesn't seem to be too many alternatives.
That's the key, right? I will say it's a great spot for her because nobody else in this race is in good form right now. The whole rest of the field. Look at Jin, who would have been a major contender. I mean, her best races, you could say, oh, like look at her Spinster win and look at her in the Shawnee last year. Those races are good. Those are really good. But she's coming off of 2 really disappointing races. I mean, her Double Dog Dare, she was sitting a perfect trip at a track she likes and just backed up. If she was going to get tired and not win the race, fine. But she was basically eased there. That's concerning. Take Charge Omaha. She was well defeated against Graded Stakes Company last time out when she was 40-1. Miss Justify, I actually think she's kind of sneaky for a price because you look at her overall form, and I think you can see that she didn't have a lot of poor races. And if you can excuse the Bed of Roses, because that's a race right before the long layoff, and then she kind of ran just like a horse who may have needed the race last time out. I think if she's tracking, I much prefer that trip for her than being on the lead. She's kind of an interesting long shot to me, but she's coming off of 2 4th-place finishes where she's been well beaten both. Majestic Oops was beat 8 lengths in her last start. Too Much Kiki beat 4 and 5 lengths against Texas Bred Company in the last couple races and now stepping up. And Immersive, who was 4 for 4 to start her career, was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies winner. Things haven't gone very well for her since her 2-year-old season. Like last year, she ran 3 times. She won one of them. She was in fields of 4, 4, and 5. She was your beaten favorite twice, and she was your beaten favorite again this year in her first start. So, can she step forward and get a little better now at second start as a 4-year-old? Sure. But going through the rest of the field, horse by horse, they're all not in the best of form. So it is a really good spot for Splendora.
Yeah, it ends up being that way. Like a horse like Immersive, for example, hasn't really run as fast as Splendora has at all, ever. And that's kind of concerning if you're trying to beat a horse like Splendora, who
she's going to be way shorter.
To be her best, right? She probably won't have to be at her best to beat this field. And looking at her last race, you probably would think that she's not at her best, and she's probably on the way up. I like the stretch out again. It's really going to be tough. I do agree with you on Miss Justify. Another horse who hasn't run as fast as Splendora consistently enough, but I like the fact that they came back sort of running and should improve off of that and get a better trip this time versus last time. Jinjin is the only other horse I could think of in here that has the class enough to beat a horse like Splendora, but even she's lacking. I mean, there's that only one section of time in 2025 where she was razor sharp, but before and after that, you haven't seen her.
Yeah. That's the thing. You kind of talk yourself through it. Like Majestic Oops is a nice horse. She just passed 1 million. Maybe she can get the kind of trip if they go too quick early, but I never thought she's kind of at this level either. I thought she's kind of like a grade 3. Thought her win a couple starts back in the Azeri might have been a little aided by the wet track, because she's really good on an off track as well. So, you kind of start going through the field, and while you may want to beat Splendora, I don't know if there are that many great options in this spot. So Splendora, your 6-5 favorite. We both think Miss Justify. Kind of interesting if you're looking for a longer price to include. Majestic Oops is solid. And then you've just got questions if anyone can really class up with Splendora if she were to show up with like a B+ race or like a B race, not even her A race. Let's get to the Mint Julep. This one will kick off your late pick 5 sequence on this loaded Saturday Churchill card. We go to the 3 Pinup Betty as a real Churchill horse for course. She's always runs well here. All 4 of her wins in her career have been at Churchill. She's 4 for 8, second and third. She ran a pretty good third last time out in the Distaff Turf Mile, making her second start back of the year. Maduro hasn't ever really won a big one. She's won some smaller races, and she always shows up. Graded stakes winner, and she's now grade 1 placed, but she's not really won a lot of big ones. This would be one of her best victories. But if you're just looking at her recent races, she fits with this group. Proctor Street, same kind of thing. She doesn't have a big graded stakes win yet. Her last 2, though, have been pretty good, and she was in a strong race behind Kathy and Marissa and Breeders' Cup winner Jazora last time out. And towards the outside, you have a couple horses that are kind of on the upswing and In the Stars and Sweet Treasure. Probably Speedberry coming from the 1, Charlene's Dream, and then the outside, Stylish Sue. Those look like the 2 that would want to be the most forward in here. How do you see this race playing out?
Yeah, it like you said, Charlene's Dream and the outside horse, Stylish Sue, should be ding-donging it up front. I don't see how either one of these horses can slow it down enough to win a race like this. But
keep in mind, there are only 2. So if one of the 2 is out for some reason, you probably upgrade the other. For me, especially Charlene's Dream. Like if Stylish Sue was out, Charlene's Dream stretching back out, I completely agree with you. Like I would like her in a spot like this if there wasn't another speed horse. And I just I have a hard time seeing her get away from Stylish Sue to the outside.
And they both have to go.
They do.
They don't really have any other way of going. So that's what makes me think that the pace might be a little bit hot up front. And, just like you said, Maduro's is a little bit shaky on the win end in races like this, because I think this might be just a touch over her reach. So that leaves me with In the Stars, who I think ran a great race last time off the bench from November 28th, 2025 to April 10th. Came back a winner in a much softer race, but I think it sets them up very well for this one. Louis Saez is going to judge this pace correctly, most likely, get his horse where they need to be and get a good trip. I mean, in the last few races, in the last 4 races, the horse that beat them was Lush Lips, who, is really, really
Excellent.
good in this division. I don't think anybody was beating that horse back in the Miss Revere when they ran against them, and probably wouldn't be as good as them today. So that one race coming back off of that layoff is really good and bodes to the improvement of this horse as a 4-year-old. If they can pair up that number or improve even a little bit, I think they're right on it. The other one is Favorite Memory, who's kind of a mystery horse for Cherie DeVaux.
Yep.
I tend to think that this horse is going to change running styles. I think they were kind of lagging behind in Europe, but here you can see in the training, I think they're going to be closer to the pace, and that might make all the difference, especially if they're able to kind of get behind Charlene's Dream and work out a trip that way, which is certainly possible. 8-1 is probably a good price. Anything lower than that, you have to double take because of the fact that this horse doesn't have any experience here in the States.
Yeah. And she might be getting this race under her to go a little longer. If you look, she's had success going longer.
Yeah, going longer.
She might still be just good enough where it doesn't matter. Like she could compete with a group like this, because it's a competitive group. Nobody overwhelms you. There shouldn't be too short of a favorite. And that's why when we look at Maduro, it's like, I don't want to take too short a price on her for sure. And in the field of 9, we sort of took the 2 speed horses out because we're just expecting those 2 to go at each other early. The 8 Sweet Treasure she's not far out of it, but she's a little behind Maduro. There's maybe one other, like Vina Arana, I actually liked. I think she's a little better than she may look, but there's 5 or 6 horses that could win this race.
Yeah, absolutely. Vina Arana, I'm going away from. I tried her a few times.
Me too. I did too.
And she's been disappointing since that run at Churchill back in 2025.
She just might need a little softer than this, right? She just may not be like quite great at stakes.
Maybe a confidence builder.
Yes, and then bump back up, because it's her last 2. They're not bad. Like, she's not being overwhelmed, but this is a tougher race than I think, or this is a pretty competitive race in comparison with those 2. So she's going to have to run better than she's run in those races to win this thing. So yeah, this was one of the, I think of all the races we talked about, the one that I had the hardest time making the strongest opinion because I could just see it playing out with a lot of these horses we mentioned. And the one that I definitely am going to have in the mix is the 7, who you were talking about, because this horse should be a fair price, has won 3 of the last 4. I'm okay excusing that Miss Revere race behind Lush Lips. Pretty Picture came out of that race to win. Bracelet and Classic Bracelet was in there and was just second behind In the Stars, and then won next out with a 93 buyer. And Classic Q was also in there, who beat some of these in the Distaff Turf Mile. So that was a strong race. And I think the one horse that I absolutely will be using is the 7 In the Stars in multi-exotics. I'm kind of curious how some of the others get bet in here. Not an easy way to start your late pick 5 sequence. Race number 7, the Mint Julep. Before we get into the late pick 4, I just want to show a quick commercial for everyone out there. Let you know about DRF Newbie, which one of the most recent platforms that we have for you at Daily Racing Form. It's horse racing past performances simplified. Let's take a look.
Think horse racing is too complicated? Think again.
And they're off!
Every pro was a newbie once. Meet DRF Newbie, the mobile tool loaded with Daily Racing Form data and the power of DRF AI.
What a shocker!
Get the insights you need fast so you can play smarter and feel more confident. DRF Newbie, horse racing made simple. Try it free today. Visit newbie.drf.com.
when you come to the racetrack for the first time, so it can be a little overwhelming when you open up that daily racing form, or you're looking at some of the past performances, or maybe some of the information that people have at the racetrack. The way that we formatted DRF newbie, it's just much more user friendly, a lot of colors, graphs. We take that same information, Barry, but we just make it easier to digest for people who don't want to pour through it all themselves. Like, I like going through all the stuff myself, because then I can find it, I kind of learn it. But that's something that happens after a while. You don't just immediately start doing that. You have to kind of understand the information first and see how it works. And a lot of times it's much easier to do that visually with colors, with graphs. And that's a really good teaching tool.
Yeah, I wish I had it when I was learning how to play the races. It probably would accelerate the curve a lot sooner.
Yep.
So I would suggest anybody, even expert players, to run things through there just to see what comes out and see how it may change your perspective and how you see races. And whatever it is that can get you winning more is always a good thing.
Yeah, maybe sometimes you don't have like the hours, or you're just kind of at the track, you're playing whatever the next race comes up in 15 minutes. So you can't get into all of the weeds in each race, but you can sort of see how everybody stacks up with each other. You can get some of the early and late pace ratings. You can look at the pace projector. You can compare the jockey trainer. You can get a really good snapshot of a lot of the horses there with DRF newbie. So check that out as we head on to the Belmont Stakes. Oh, Barry, so I looked just kind of as we have like kind of middle show break here, we're talking. Belmont got the news today that Chip Honcho and Patente don't look like they're going to be running, but we still have, as of right now, a really good field for the Belmont. When you're just sort of looking at some of the horses who could be in there, you've got the top 4 finishers from the Kentucky Derby. You have, I think, 6 horses that were in the Derby, the Derby winner, the Florida Derby winner, the Arkansas Derby winner, the Louisiana Derby winner, the Peter Pan winner. They all look like they're going to be running in that race. You have horses that are trained by Bill Mott, Brad Cox, Cherie DeVoe, Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher. And we have a maiden who might run in all 3 legs of the Triple Crown in Oselli. So a lot of cool storylines heading in. And I mean, when you have the possibility of Golden Tempo, Renegade, Oselli, Chief Wallaby, and Commandment as like a lot of the heavy hitters going in, it'll be a really good race.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny to think that when we have the Triple Crown races and we're not going for the Triple Crown, the races tend to be a lot more competitive and bigger fields.
Yep.
And that's exactly what we have here. I mean, this is almost a totally different race than the Preakness.
And the dirt and of totally different horses, right?
Yep.
I think the only horses that ran in the Preakness that were even thinking about coming back were Oselli and Chip Honcho. And now it doesn't look like Chip Honcho as of Wednesday morning is going to be running. So it may only be one horse that was in the Preakness that even runs back in the Belmont. And the way that the Derby was, where they went so quick and the race really fell apart, where your top 2 finishers were horses that were in the bottom 4 of the race early on, the complexion of the Belmont could be way, way different, because on paper now, the 2 horses that just got removed today, they were 2 of the speed horses in the race.
Yep.
Patente and Chip Honcho. Now all of a sudden, you look at the field and you've got, I think Power Shift, who's a maiden, or who just broke the maiden, who's the lightly raced horse. I think that's the Rapoli horse that they're going to have go, because that helps him, but it also helps Renegade, right? Making sure that there's a fast early pace for the other Rapoli runner. So you're looking at maybe like Power Shift and maybe Growth Equity, who's one of Chad Brown's horses. And I think Chad Brown might have 2, but there aren't really like dead set front runners in that race.
No, not at all. Not at least unless they change tactics. And, it just depends on who ends up showing up in the gate. But like you said, at least early on, it looks like there's not going to be too much speed. And it might play, more like a quote unquote normal kind of stakes race rather than a Triple Crown event. But
Yeah.
It certainly is shaping up to be a real competitive event. Hopefully the whole day kind of shapes up around that, and we have some good racing that day. I'm sure we will, but we just want some prices.
Absolutely. And what's cool too is it'll be Wednesday through Sunday where you'll get all that action at Saratoga for that Belmont Stakes Racing Festival. And like each day is a little different. I think Wednesday is like the New York bred day. Thursday and Friday, you start getting in some of that graded stakes action. And then Saturday's the big day, obviously. And they even finish things up on Sunday. Barry, let's get into race number 8. This is the grade 3 Aristides 6 furlong sprint. The bulk of the support's going to come down towards the inside. The 3 horses inside are really going to take a ton of money. One of my personal favorites right now, roll on, Big Joe, buddy. Come on, Big Joe. I need another Big Joe getting back into the winner's circle like he was. It was last year for me on February the 15th. I had a good day when he won the Palos Verdes. So I've been a fan of this horse since. And honestly, since that day when he wins the Palos Verdes, has like 2 poor races that were back to back when he just didn't really fire all that much when he came out to Del Mar for the Bing Crosby, and then when he was behind Ben Tornado. And every other race, he's fired. And he's become a really consistent horse, like really good on the speed figures. He can show speed, but he can sit off a little bit and finish. So you kind of start with him because when you're racking up those big speed figures like he has, you do start with those horses. Cornucopian has always been a really highly regarded horse. He earned that 101 buyer in his debut. He was the Arkansas Derby favorite in his second start, even money, and he went wicked early fractions battling on the front end. Actually ran a pretty good 4th, all said and done, after how fast he had to go early in that race. Then was disappointing following that. Gave him plenty of time off. And this year, his first 2 races, they were pretty easy wins. He didn't face much. Faced a really tough group in the Churchill Downs last time out. Kind of split the field, like a non-threatening 5th. This is a softer group overall, top to bottom. So it's better for him. I'll say I've never really been sure how good he is because he's kind of been the type of horse that when he's faced soft groups, he can pour it on. And I know he's got a really high A game, but he's kind of like we see his floor, if he faces tougher company or if things haven't gone well for him, he goes a little too fast early in some of those earlier races, he's backed up. He's a more mature horse now. He can sit off the pace and finish. He's not like a need the lead horse. So connections, everything, like this is a way better spot for him than the Churchill Downs. Then you got the cool Madhouse, who never really knew how classy this guy was. He wins the Gallant Bob last year in a race where the heavy favorite that day was Barnes. And for some reason, Barnes was like 80 lengths behind early on. He was so far out of it. He came running late, but Madhouse won that. And then he went to the Breeders' Cup Sprint. He was in over his head there. But his 2 races this year as a 4-year-old have been really good. He beat Joe right on the square. Roll on Big Joe was sitting right behind him. And Madhouse just kept going. The first start for Big Joe in a couple months, maybe he was a little sharper, but those are the 3, Barry, who are going to take a ton of money. Everybody else in this field might be double digit. I mean, Madacat Road will get some money. The other 3 might be double digit odds. Is it all about the inside 3? Can you make a case for some of the others? Who do you like here?
It's just hard to gauge when you have these Baffert horses that are truly inconsistent, like Cornucopian and Madacat Road, because they have the ability and talent to win races like this. It's just a matter of when they show up and when they don't.
And they're usually such short prices, right? Like we're not
getting
that's the
other
value on the Baffert horses most of the time.
Right, that's the other dilemma. But a horse like Madacat Road, I've basically given up on in this kind of company. Hasn't shown that they're really capable of it. They can come close on occasion, but as a horse to put on the win end, I couldn't do either Madacat Road or Cornucopian just for the fact that Madhouse is in this race. If Madhouse wasn't in this race, Cornucopian might end up, kind of controlling the pace and winning this one. But Madhouse kind of throws the biggest wrinkle in here because I don't think Cornucopian is as fast as Madhouse, or at least lately hasn't been.
And he's got to go from the rail. Madhouse is going. Like, he is for sure going. He's really fast. Paco's putting him on the front end. He's going pedal to the metal. So if you try to keep up with him, you might have to pay the price.
Right, and get cooked like Roland Big Joe did last time.
Yeah.
So I know that those connections are probably hoping that somebody runs with Madhouse just to soften that one up just enough, because Roland Big Joe can get a great trip here. And that makes a lot of sense on a strip that they like. They're 3 for 4 at Churchill, 5 for 13 at the distance with 5 seconds. They're going to be right on it. I mean, when's the last time you saw a horse run 4 consecutive triple-digit buyers? It rarely happens these days.
Yeah.
And this horse is in a spot where they are projected to get a really, really good trip. As far as alternatives to Roland Big Joe, Gold Sweep kind of caught my attention a little bit. Sure. Seems to be a horse on the way up, although light in experience, especially in stakes company, but is kind of on the verge. And this might be the race that gets him over the top, because if those horses, Madhouse, Cornucopian, Roland Big Joe kind of tire late, I think this is the horse that'll pick them up. Should be a decent price here, but it's going to be tough to beat Roland Joe, in my opinion.
What I like about Gold Sweep, too, from just a price standpoint, right? If you're looking to throw somebody in the mix to mix it up with the inside 3 horses who are going to be the 3 short prices, Gold Sweep showed some ability early in his career, right? He was precocious. He is second in his career debut. Then he wins the Tremont with a 91 buyer in his second start. And he was favored in the Sanford, where he ran second in the grade 3 Sanford. But it's funny, he runs a 91 buyer, which was just probably higher than it was. Like, he was probably too high. It probably wasn't that high. And then he runs a 65 in his next start, and it was probably not that low, right? So he probably wasn't quite as good or quite as bad as either of those 2 races would suggest in back-to-back. But you did know early on there was some talent. He was good right away, and he was in against graded stakes company and faced good horses. And then things went wrong for a while. Like, they had to kind of figure him out. But now all of a sudden, towards the end of 2025, look at how it all kind of comes together. Sometimes you need to drop down to a certain level. You need, like you said, confidence builders we were talking about earlier with different horses. But now he's strung together like 6 or 7 races in a row that are pretty good, and he's moving back on the upswing to where, like, if he continues to just little by little progress, it wouldn't shock you at all. I think you were there. You go.
That's very true. He's such a tough read because this race can go a lot of different directions, and there are horses that, at least on paper, that are faster than him, but
classier.
Given the right trip and the setup, this horse could actually outrun those odds and be right there at the finish, depending on how this plays out up front early.
You got the guy who's riding this racetrack very well, too, with Jose Ortiz aboard at a big price.
Oh, yeah.
This horse should be a price in here and will be a price. So this is going to be like one of the few times when you get one of the Ortiz brothers at a fair price here with Gold Sweep. Roll On Big Joe is the one to beat in here, but Madhouse has won 2 in a row. He loves to win races. He's really quick. You have the 2 Baffert horses and Cornucopian, who's a graded stakes winner and who has one of the higher ceilings in here, and also Madacat Road, who finally got back into the winner's circle for the second time after a string of underneath finishes when he was facing graded stakes company. That is the grade 3 Aristides for sprinters. It's going to go as race number 8 on Saturday at Churchill Downs. Up next, it's the grade 3 Regret. You have 4 horses in here that exit the grade 2 Edgewood. As you were pointing out, Barry, the timing now for this Churchill meet, where they have the big weekend, Oaks Day and Derby Day. Then they have this weekend. And then next month, a lot of these horses come right back and they run on Stephen Foster Day. So it works out really well, the timing for a lot of these horses to run, 3 times in these couple months. Indigo Woods is one of the horses that drops out of the Edgewood, and I think we'll take money in here. That Edgewood was a tough field, but this race doesn't have that much early speed. Lilo Lil got to the lead last time out in the Providencia, but it's not like she was going all that fast. A horse that you and I like, who's drawn to the outside, is probably the one to beat in here. That's Tam Tam. We've played her a couple times before. She won 2 starts back at Gulfstream Park when she wasn't favored. She was a huge price last time out, and she ran a bang-up race in the Grade 2 Edgewood behind Imagination the Lady. She's drawn to the outside, so if you worry that maybe she gets hooked wide, but I think with the speed that she has and the fact that there's not that much other early speed in here, I think she's either on the lead or sitting really close to it. So I'm not quite worried about the outside in here. Do you think she's going to get a good trip? Do you think she's sort of the horse to start with?
Yeah, absolutely. Because Lilo Lil is probably not fast enough to get to the front here. You see the fractions in that race at Santa Anita on April 5th, and they were completely slow in the Providencia. Tam Tam does that backwards. So I think Tam Tam's probably going to be on the lead. That being said, getting to the lead might not be the issue, but staying on might be just
at a mile and an eighth.
Trip. Right. I think that would be more of her undoing than the actual, pace or scenario, the pace scenario that this horse is going to get. Indigo Woods seems very, very logical here. They were in a tough spot last time in the Edgewood, way outside, just didn't get an ideal trip, and they kept running, which is also encouraging. And you can see the time before that, March 7th at the fairgrounds, they were a lot closer to the pace that day. And I think that's the kind of trip they'll need in order to win this one, because they're on the rail. Dropping all the way back doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. I would think Tyler would get this horse somewhere mid-pack, where they could just kind of pounce on the leader there. Another one is Faithful Departed, sort of the same idea, where in the last race they won, albeit in an allowance race, from the 9-hole, and they were the complete widest horse. Even though they were favored, they still got it done. I think that goes a long way, because they do have some experience in stakes. When they ran a good race on March 7th at the fairground, when they lost to Indigo Woods. And if you like that one, you kind of have to like this one too, because this one's just knocking on the door. And it's just a matter of trip and price that would determine which one I would go to on top.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you in that I don't think Lilo Lil is maybe good enough to win or even get the lead. She's kind of a fun long shot for the reasons we're talking about, there not being that much speed. If she can just sit second or third, Johnny V does a really nice job with horses like this, kind of putting them in the mix. So I don't think she's as good as a lot of the rest of this field, but if we're going to just completely agree that I think the 1 and the 9 are the horses to beat. Indigo Woods and then Tam Tam. I think Tam Tam's certainly the horse to beat. Like, I have no problem even possibly singling a horse like this on one ticket just for the pace scenario. The reason why I wouldn't is what we talked about with the mile and an eighth. That scares me a little bit, just the distance for her. So I completely agree. The 1 ran a bang up race that and can sit closer. And if you take the 1, if you just kind of took Tam Tam out of the race, Indigo Woods isn't really slower than most of the other fillies in here. She can be, I think, wherever she wants to be with kind of in comparison to a lot of the others. So I agree with you. I wouldn't be shocked at all if she's sitting a lot more like she was on March the 7th when she won, where she's just inside, maybe 2 or 3 lengths behind, letting Tam Tam go. Maybe she's sitting like 4th. And I just feel like she's going to run a really good race, 3rd start off the bench. So I feel like 1 and 9 are the horses to beat. My fun long shot was the 4, Lilo Lil. Barry, you kind of mentioned the 5, Faithful Departed, as a fun long shot to include, who has like form that's not far behind horses that are going to take a lot more money than her in here.
Yeah, I mean, when she ran second to Indigo Woods, she was 35-1.
Yep. And she might be 2 to 3 times the price of Indigo Woods in here.
Exactly. And I think that merits a little bit of a second look in a race like this, especially getting hot riding Jose Ortiz aboard. There's a lot to like there.
Yeah. Barn doesn't start a whole lot of horses, but they're firing right now. Faithful Departed in race number 9 at Churchill on Saturday. That is the Grade 3 Regret on this excellent Saturday Churchill card. Here is race number 10, the grade 3 Blame, going 1 1/8 on the dirt. So Rattle and Roll is now 7, and he's coming off of a disappointing effort in the Ben Ally. That was his first start back from the Saudi Cup, but you just kind of expect him to run better in that type of a race. Like, that's his race. Those levels, like the Ben Ally, the Fayette, where we saw him last year running second behind Hit Show. So that, it worries me a little when that happens and you're now getting older. But I can also take the counter and say, okay, maybe he just needed the race and he should be better second start back. I don't want to take too short of a price on him. The 3 Hit Show, grade 1 winner, Dubai World Cup winner. He's another one who is coming back from a trip. He went to the Dubai World Cup this year. He's now going to be making his first start back. Last year, he ran in the Stephen Foster after the Dubai World Cup. It was a tough Stephen Foster, probably tougher than this race with Mindframe and Sierra Leone and First Mission in there, but he didn't really fire. So maybe he does need a race after a trip like that. He has run well before off layoffs. I think those are the horses from a starting point who are like the class, but Vibe is the horse to catch on the outside. There's just no other early speed in this race. And Vibe has won 3 in a row, and Vibe is drawn really well. He'll have to go 1 1/8. All 3 of his wins have been at 1 mile, but he's earned nice speed figures in each of his last 3. He's kind of stepped forward in each of them. Not sure who he's beat. He's got a decent little pedigree. You know, he's got some horses that were related to him. Dam was in Graded Stakes Company. Outwork won the Wood Memorial. Remember a couple years back when it was a grade 1
indeed.
and Outwork ran in the Kentucky Derby. So he's a nice horse, and they paid a lot for him. He has a good pedigree, and this looks like a really good spot for him to try to get a Graded Stakes win.
Yeah, he definitely looks like the goods in this spot. He's running very well, and is going to get a similar trip to what he has been getting in all of his races. So I think that idea that he's going to be doing exactly what he's been doing in a race against horses that like to lag back.
They're grinders and kind of plotters, right? A lot of this field.
Like a horse like Rattle and Roll gets beat a lot because they just don't get into the race.
Running style. Yep.
Right. Running style absolutely kills them. Them being on the rail is probably the best thing for them, but they're, again, probably going to be dead last in the backstretch somewhere. The only horse that I see that could actually kind of stick with this horse up front early, maybe, would be Hall of Fame.
Yeah, my old friend. I tried to last year. I just kept trying to get this guy, right? Like, and when you kind of look back at his races last year, now they're not that bad, right? He was
they aren't
running well, and then look at the horses he was losing to. Touch
right.
Upon
Touch
a Star,
Upon a Star, Fierceness,
who's
Mystic
really good,
Dan, and Nisos,
Antiquarian, right?
Right.
Like that last race in the Churchill Downs, that's a way tougher race than this race, top to bottom, where they had all those good sprinters. Knightsbridge was in there, Imagination, Disco Time, Banishing, T.O. Elvis. That was a really tough race. This is not as difficult of a race, and he's got some of the speed figures. It's just, and he can possibly keep up. To me, you're exactly right. I was 8-2 because he was the other horse that I think is a wild card enough to, he's still only raced 12 times in his career, right? There's still a little upside with this horse at 5 years old.
Oh yeah. That's how I see it. And his races weren't bad. The ones he lost last year were not that bad. It just doesn't translate well for his record and your, I guess, confidence in him winning a race like this. But he's certainly getting some class relief here, especially off of that last race in the Churchill Downs, where that's probably not his best trip. That's probably not what they were pointing towards anyway. This is more likely the spot that would be to their liking.
Absolutely.
Same thing with Hit Show. I think this horse just keeps coming. The longer, the better. I think this might actually be a little bit too short for Hit Show, but I mean, this horse just keeps coming, and I don't expect.
He's a pretty cool horse.
Less. He's a very cool horse.
You kind of forget about him because he's not always running at the top grade 1s here. But you go back from the start of his career, he wins his debut. He wins the Withers. He's second in the Wood. He ran a really good 5th in the Kentucky Derby. He was 4th in the Belmont back in 2023. He did not run poorly behind Arcangelo and Forte and Tapit Trice. Then towards the end of 2023, he tailed off a little bit, but then 2024, he wins. And then they start putting him in graded stakes company. He wins the West Virginia Governor's Cup, the Lucas Classic. He wins the Fayette. He's in the Clark. He wins the Louisiana. He goes and runs in the Santa Anita Handicap. He wins the Dubai World Cup. This is a horse that's done a lot of good work over the last couple of years. He's earned now $9 million. And for a horse with his running style to have won half of his races, it shows that he just likes to win. And he's a cool horse, because generally, like we were talking about with Rattle and Roll, like horses are more like Rattle and Roll, where they're like 1 for 3 versus 1 for 2 with their running style, right? Rattle and Roll is 11 for 32 because of his deeper closing style. Lots of good second and thirds, whereas Hit Show's won almost half of his races, which I think just shows you he's been well spotted, he's been well handled, and he's a cool horse too. Maybe he needs one coming off of the trip to Dubai and back, but he's probably the class of the field, certainly with the Dubai World Cup win, and like him and Rattle and Roll have done the most, but they may not be the best suited in this race with the way it sets up. There's not a lot of early speed. Vibe can possibly control it from the outside. Hall of Fame is sort of a fun, intriguing horse, especially if he is in the 5 to 1-ish range, because we know he has good races and we know he can get this type of trip, and he might be able to sit a pretty good second or third. Any of the longer shots intriguing at all?
No, thank you.
I couldn't get the Capital Idea, Houday, Original Sin.
I can only see Hall of Fame or Hit Show beating Vibe. And honestly, in a race like this, I would probably make I'm probably going to make a decent win bet on Hall of Fame.
If he is just 5 to 1-ish, right?
Right. Because if Vibe stubs his toe and for whatever reason isn't able to go this far, at least at this point, Hall of Fame and Hit Show are the only two other horses I can see picking up those pieces, and Hall of Fame will probably get first run. So I might want to go there. Yeah. And might get overlooked a little bit just because of the fact the horse hasn't won in a little while. Was in the Churchill Downs last time. So I think that price will be pretty solid. So I would think that's the direction I'm going to go.
Hall of Fame getting a big endorsement from myself and Barry. Yeah, I was like trying to look through the other prices. The only one who I can at least use under is Original Sin, because Original Sin did have legitimate trouble 2 starts back, and he was favored over Corporate Power in that race. And Corporate Power went and beat Skippy Longstocking and won the Ali Sheba. And Corporate Power is in really nice form. His 3 races in 2026 are all very, very good. So if you looked at Original Sin and you eliminated the race 2 starts back, all of a sudden you've got back-to-back victories. It's just he's not fast early, and this race is not going to set up that well for him on paper. So while I look at his overall form and I'm like, yeah, he's moving in the right direction, he just needs a pace meltdown, and we're not seeing it here. It just looks so much like this is Vibe's race to control from the outside. And if he loses, I think it's more that he doesn't maybe want to go this far, and it was a little farther than he was being asked right now, versus like him battling with a bunch of horses on the front end.
Right. And that may be the difference between this whole race going to Vibe and not.
Yeah. That is race number 10. Let's get to the closeout race on Saturday at Churchill Downs. Barry, before we do, what is happening with Horse Racing Happy Hour this week? I know you and Louie always are covering some of the Southern California races, or sometimes even more than that. Where can we find you this week?
Yeah, this week actually next week is probably the bigger week. I know we do SoCal Saturday every Friday. And funny enough, I want to toot my own horn here. I had 8 out of 10 winners on Saturday for Gold Rush Day. Yeah, nice. On top winners and gave out 3 exactas. But
beautiful.
You can check us out over at the Horse Racing Happy Hour, SoCal Saturday every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And then next week, we're doing the Horseshoe Indianapolis. They have a couple stakes next week, I think on Wednesday. So we're going to go over that entire card. It'd be myself, Louis Rabeau, and Josh Rodriguez from On the Wrong Lead.
Awesome. Love Josh and the guys over at On the Wrong Lead too. So let's finish up with Churchill Downs at 80%, 8 out of 10. That's not bad. That's not bad. That'll pay the bills. That'll get the job done there.
No, I had a good day.
Yeah. Nice. Beautiful. 11th race, the grade 3 Arlington, mile and a 16th on the turf course for older horses here. Langnos has gotten really, really good. He was a horse who always had ability, but he had some trouble trips, and then he had some races where you'd bet him off of the trouble trip and he'd be a little disappointing, but very much taken a step forward in his last few and really just like finding ways to win, because his last race, he did not look like he was going to win that race at all. And he just got the nose down right at the right time. So you start with him. Others in here who will take some money. You've got, the 7 Mercanti actually won this race last year. He comes off a disappointing effort, but that was against grade 1 company. And if you look at the races where he faced Rhetorical and maybe the grade 1 races are a little too tough for him right now, the others aren't bad. And you've got Quattro Centro, who's really quick. He was just behind Langnos last time. He had won back-to-back races, including the grade 3 Tampa Bay, leading into that opening verse. Brilliant Birdie's been a little disappointing as of late, because this was a horse who I really thought was starting to step forward. And it's not as if he's running bad races. Even looking at his speed figures, he's been 4th and 5th recently. But, coming into 2025, like middle to end of 2025, I was really thinking he was going to step up a little bit. And I haven't seen him put it all together. I wonder if there's a big race in there from him somewhere down the line. Barry, how do you want to close this thing out? Who are some of the horses you like here?
Yeah, this is a really tough race, even though Langnos is in here. Like you said, this horse is just razor sharp right now. But, I mean, I don't know how long this horse can keep this sort of thing up.
Agreed.
Definitely finds a field here that's very competitive. Not that the others weren't, but a little bit more so than the last few races.
Yep, I agree.
I want to give a shot to a horse like Minaret Station,
who
came off the bench running, in the opening verse, April 30th, and just didn't get a great trip. Was pinned down on the inside, and now gets a favorable post position and should probably sit a way better trip than last time, because they kind of had to fade all the way back and then make a run all the way around. This time they could probably settle where they need to be and make a good run at Quattro Centro and try to outlast Langnos. It's going to be tough, but I think that horse can do it, especially on the way up. As far as, buyer speed figures and everything, this horse seems to be trending upwards. Same thing with West Hollywood, another horse that interests me a lot, especially with the rail draw. I think they're going to force to be in the race a lot earlier. They didn't get a good post position last time in the opening verse. They were caught way out wide and just got the wide trip. Going back to IRAD sort of makes sense here, considering that, if he can get this horse out, which he probably will be able to, and kind of sit, he should be fine with, Pratt going to Macero, which was kind of odd to me. Not really sure what the idea is behind that, picking that horse over this one. If they did have the choice, I just don't get it. But here we are. Beyond that, it's going to be tough. I mean, I couldn't get to Macero. I couldn't get the Quattro Centro. I couldn't get the Brilliant Birdie, and I couldn't get the Cold Battle. So, I mean, literally, I think West Hollywood at that price might be the play.
The horse who you started with, Minaret Station, I completely agree with almost everything that you said about this horse. He can sit closer, and he actually was sitting closer in the opening verse. He was down on the inside. He was about 4th or 5th. And just as you were saying, like, look at the running line. He was only 3 lengths off. Back. He lost all this position inside. And then all of a sudden, instead of being 3 lengths off, he's like 7 lengths off. And he's 8th. And he had to basically run another race just to get back into contention. I feel like he can sit closer with the outside draw. And also keep in mind, look at his races before that. He ran a race in October of 2024, was off from October all the way till June of 2025. And when we saw him in the opening verse, he was coming off a 10-month layoff. So he really needed that race in the opening verse. He still improved, and he might be a lot better than we realize, because the only form we really have on him is from when he was 2.
Yep. Really. I mean, honestly, that's it. And that one race this year
was really good.
Yeah.
So I think this guy is very, very sneaky. I like him a lot. I feel like he's going to sit way closer than it may look based on his last race, Minaret Station. We talked about Langos, who's the horse to beat, but you can make some cases for some of the other prices as we are. And Barry mentioned West Hollywood, who I completely agree. He could run better in here. The horse who I want to give one more chance to, I was kind of getting towards, is Mercante, because I just remember, I remember a lot about him last year. I picked him in a fantasy league coming off of the Arlington, because he was second. He wins the Kentucky Cup Classic. He's second in the Grade 1 Turf Classic on Derby Day. And then he wins this race last year. So at that point, he's in really good form. And going into the Ellis race, he was actually supposed to run on the Stephen Foster card last year. And he got like a little sick. He missed something in the training, and then it backed him up. He was backed up going into the Ellis race. And it's like a lot of the races he ran last year weren't bad, but I think all of the timing got thrown off for him last year. And then you look at this year, he's come back. He faced Willie Dees on the synthetic in the Kentucky Cup Classic. Actually ran really well that day. He finished second, and Willie Dees is in good form. He came back and won again. And then nobody was beating Rhetorical. He just got a really easy lead that day, and he crushed. In Rhetorical, earned a 107 buyer, and he's a really nice horse. So I'm going to give the 7 Mercante another shot back in here. One more chance, third start off the layoff, hoping he can run a good one like he did last year. He likes this course. He can get this trip, and he's got a little versatility. He can kind of sit close, but he can finish. So for me, the 6 and the 8, or the 6 and the 7, 6, 7. Milo's not here to do the quick 6, 7. They're the two that I think are kind of fun price plays, along with the horse to beat, who is Langos. Barry mentions the 1, West Hollywood. Anything else to hit on before we get out of here, my friend?
No, this is a good sequence to attack. I mean, there's plenty of bets to go after within the ones that we went over too. I mean, the late pick 5 is all stake races, and you got the late pick 3s, the turf pick.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got everything.
And what's nice too, a lot of these tracks are developing these late $3 pick 3s, the late $5 doubles, the lower takeout minimum stuff. We're seeing that starting to pop up all over the place. So you got a lot of options here on, even the race that we started with in race number 5, they have a 50-cent all stakes, all turf pick 4 that starts right there too. And pick 5, races 5 through 9. So we basically just went through what could be 2 pick 5 sequences if you want to play them that way on Saturday over at Churchill Downs. Barry, my friend, it was supposed to be like the calm before the storm, but that's not even the case anymore. We got a huge weekend at Churchill, and then next week it'll be all about the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival at Saratoga. I will be heading over there for the first time, making my first trip to Saratoga. So I'll be out there Friday and Saturday, those 2 days. So if you're out at the track, come and say hello. I'll be covering the races and getting some videos and pictures and stuff for social media. So Barry, good luck this weekend. Let's crush it at Churchill. Good luck to all of you as we say goodbye. Let's show you our commercial for DRF Newbie one more time.
Think horse racing is too complicated? Think again.
And they're off.
Every pro was a newbie once. Meet DRF Newbie, the mobile tool loaded with daily racing form data and the power of DRF AI.
Corner shocker.
Get the insights you need fast so you can play smarter and feel more confident. DRF Newbie, horse racing made simple. Try it free today. Visit newbie.drf.com.